The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 years, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor.
Happy Friday, folks.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one. Trump could put billions into U.S. Bitcoin reserve without congressional approval. David Bailey suggests over $10 billion could be put into a reserve before needing to get Congress to approve funding. Where's my laugh button? Ha 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 ha. Anyway, according to a tweet by David Bailey from Bitcoin Magazine, enhance. The verdict from the experts is that the president has the authority to establish the SBR, Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, without Congress and implement a fairly large acquisition program, tens of billions of Bitcoin. To go bigger, we'd need Congress, but we can start right away at a micro-strategy-esque scale. Also, Senator Cynthia Lummis proposes that there could be a Bitcoin Act. Sell the Federal Reserve's gold just as Bitcoin overtakes silver on the charts. Dan Eve, what do you think of Bailey's proposal coupled with the senator's idea? Sell gold, buy Bitcoin.
Well, it makes sense with some of the other smaller countries like El Salvador starting to stack Bitcoin, right? That we're going to have this nation state gold rush. Whether they end up dropping gold as the reserve, like Cynthia Lummis is proposing, is another thing. But sounds good, right? Having a Bitcoin reserve. At the very least, though, they're going to keep that 200,000 that they've got in surplus at the moment, right? But couldn't the Biden administration sell that before Trump comes in? So in theory, so it's only
with 200 Bitcoin. 200,000 Bitcoin. That's a really strange idea where those are seized through criminal prosecution, similar to like a boat that was used by a gangster. And what they do is they have a property auction, they sell those off, and then usually they use them for restitution, people that were murdered by the gangster. It's not really the U.S. government's property. Like to say that the president could take the 200,000 Bitcoin that were seized from criminal prosecutions is to say you could change the way that criminal prosecutions work. And president say that really nice boat, we should just give everyone a boat instead of selling them for money. Whereas selling them for money is the standard practice. It's just what you do.
I suppose like what happened with the 40 million of Silk Road back in the day. But Germany, the problem is, right, if you said it, Germany have got their issue now. They've lost, is it over $1 billion now they've lost from the Bitcoin price pumping. So I think it's going to make them think twice about selling any Bitcoin that's on the books.
The Germany issue is
selling it themselves.
Those were just their Bitcoin. I think it was kind of a strategic investment, and someone decided to cut bait on the strategic investment.
Savage.
Yeah, I'm just not. I mean, I'm a Bitcoiner, and I love the idea that we could trick the government into taking their money and spending it on Bitcoin, and then a few years later, taking more of their money and spending it on Bitcoin, getting less Bitcoin, and all the while, I hold my little stack of Bitcoin, and you geniuses make it go up for me, right? I'm all for that idea. Like, I'm in on it, guys. But you gotta be kidding me if you think that the United States government should hold Bitcoin or if they should act like they're hedging their bets. The United States government produces the US dollar. Hello, is this thing on? They produce the US dollar. You're the home team. You're the Yankees, Dodgers this year, but you're the home team. You can't give up on the US dollar, because if you give up, if the United States government starts to hedge, and I understand the United States government is being taken over by, I don't know who they are, but a lot of interesting reality show characters this week. Anyway, even if you are an interesting reality show character, you have to acknowledge that you, the U.S. government, make the U.S. dollar. You're betting against yourself. You're wrecking your own monopoly, right? Maybe your monopoly is going away. Everyone else, every other country, every other person, every other government and corporation entity, except you, the United States government, can profit from that, right? You can all hedge. You can all be the big short guys, the smartest money in the room. I'm going against the U.S. dollar. This time it's going to work. But if you're the one that owns the dollar, you can't do that. So it'll be really interesting if they do this. Obviously, I think that Gold bugs in the audience are saying, yes, Cynthia Lummis, let's sell the Fed's gold. First, we'll need an audit of it. It's in Fort Knox. We haven't audited in our lifetimes. No one knows if the gold is there. In the movie Ocean's 11, they at least had a camera on the gold so they can confirm that it was still there. We don't even have that much. But yes, it's a mess all over. Dan, what do you think? There's also this idea that you can spend billions of dollars without congressional approval, which sounds like a great idea. Maybe President Biden should create a strategic Litecoin reserve or anything else he'd want to do with billions of dollars just instantly without power. Do you think there's anything to this, Dan? Do you think there'll be a strategic Bitcoin reserve?
I don't know. Well, it sounds like there's a 10 billion like buffer, right? Some sort of threshold, but whether it's something that's in law or whether they're just theorizing, and just saying, putting a figure out of thin air. But if it's in law, then he'll probably end up, trying to do it. And if not, then he'll try and bend the laws to do it.
I'm not sure there's a law. That threshold idea, they just seem to be creating that. There's lots of things presidents can do with executive orders. So they can start wars, they can invade countries. Not official wars, but again, they can executive actions, whatever you want to call them.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, buying $10 billion of Bitcoin, that's
it's nothing for the U.S. government.
But again, going to war, right?
It's this very idea that even a reasonable person could say it creates a domino effect where the U.S. government's bought Bitcoin, so BlackRock, so Bank of America, so Italian government and French and UN, and then the U.S. government says, gosh, that Bitcoin buying plan that we had worked so well, all these agencies bought, we should do another round. And then they do it and they get less Bitcoin. And I agree we could all do it. And it's this path to the destruction of the old units, of the old fiat instruments. And I know everyone in libertarians are all cheering. They're like, yes, we did it. We overturned the apple cart. We're going to wreck everything. But the people who own the apple cart don't want to wreck it. Like, you don't wreck the ship that you're on, right? You don't sink your own submarine here. So it's very difficult to imagine that they would actually do this, even as crazy as times are. Let's move on to the next issue. Issue 2, only 1,000 passes left. Advertising. Elon Musk issues surprise crypto endorsement amid 3 trillion Bitcoin and Dogecoin price boom. Well, it wasn't really that much of a surprise. Elon's been talking about crypto for quite a while. But this time, in a very interesting announcement, Elon said that the inflation bug of Dogecoin was no big deal and that it was even a good thing. He said specifically, I think that the flat inflation of Dogecoin, which means decreasing percentage inflation, is a feature, not a bug, pointing to Twitter in response to Billy Marcus, who had suggested users proposing removing Dogecoin's inflation. Now, remember, Dogecoin's inflation mirrors the U.S. government dollars inflation, where if you hold Dogecoin, you constantly are undervalued. Your Dogecoin is constantly being made worth less by the constant printing of Dogecoin. Let's go to Thomas Hunt. What do you think about Elon Musk and Dogecoin? Well, I see the price is up, which is always what seems to happen when Elon Musk mentions Dogecoin, and one can only assume and hope that he, and especially his son or sons or whoever they are, have front-run Dogecoin and sold for a lot of money by now. So that's probably good. But I still think of Jackson Palmer, my friend, who must be rolling over in his grave, imagining this horror come to Doge, that Doge is now the Department of Government Efficiency, and that Elon and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to allegedly figure out what the government does and if they can do it for cheaper and fire a bunch of people. So that's going to be great. That's what Doge has always been about, the community spirit, firing people, such wow, much goodness. But yeah, to see the price go up, to see it be made a financial instrument, for people to take the inflation seriously as a bug and a feature, not as a mistake of people who coded something kind of rashly and quickly, a joke wallet that had the font changed to Comic Sans and the Bitcoin image changed to Doge. Those were the main main features and changes of Dogecoin. So it's just shocking to see it come to this. It's Elon Musk's own little fun private game. I guess a lot of people are playing in this. A lot of people are making and losing money. It's all happening on Dogecoin. Dan, what do you think of Dogecoin? It started out as a joke, and now it's a even bigger joke.
It's gonna be with us forever. I think as much as everyone hates the idea, we're gonna have Dogecoin forever, and there will be Dogecoin ETFs because there just will be, right? It's like it's the same. It's an antique in the sea of cryptocurrencies. It's like the first major meme that came out. It's obviously the biggest meme. Maybe it'll be usurped by some of the other ones. Like there's a well, there's 20,000 memes being created a day on Solana alone, for example. But so whether one of them will end up overtaking Doge, I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely spurned a lot of things right now. We've got the Department of Government Efficiency. Now imagine, back in the day when Jackson Palmer was working on that and his political beliefs that yeah, he'd be a probably a bit miffed about this whole the Elon Musk thing. But
I
has he
still I
on
still
it yet?
remember the day that Doge launched, looking at it on like a command line somewhere and watching them mine it and figure it out and buying and selling, hundreds of thousands of Doge at pennies or less than pennies. And I think to myself, I think, should I get rich off this Dogecoin thing? Is this the thing I should get rich on? And to really get rich on Dogecoin, you're going to have to take your own meager assets, your few $1,000s, and flush them all into this complete nothing coin, like this complete absolute nothing coin. I didn't even know Jackson at that point. No one knew anybody, but flush them all in, buy millions of Doge, sit on it and wait. And it turns out Dogecoin broke 10 cents recently. You could have killed it if you bought millions of Doge on the first day, on the second day, on the 5 years in. They're talking in the chat. Jackie says Doge
Doge
rain.
Brain. Oh,
There's a great Dogecoin app. Our friend Christian used to
yeah.
have a lot of Doge. Not sure that worked out either. So it is much harder than people think to just arbitrarily say, like, I'm going to hold on to a million Doge that's worth $20. I'm
I
going to
mean, no
hold.
one would ever thought it reached billions, let alone isn't it 40 billion or something insane now? The market cap. It is 54 billion, the market cap. Yeah, so
See, they're
it's
probably
not going
designing
anywhere. It's a top six.
ETFs. I'm over here scoffing at the ETF, trying to imagine the serious financial documents, a big ass proposal document with a binder and on the front cover, Doge. And I'm thinking that seems silly to me. But no, you're right, Dan. If it's worth 54 billion, if people are trading it for millions, there's probably a guy out there who's mad at me. He's like, I made my millions off Doge, perfectly fine way to make the millions. Blah, 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 blah. And I've even seen that movie, the Dogecoin movie. It's something about this is not
Um,
financial advice, I think it's
yeah,
called.
Slumdog Dogenaire or something.
Yeah, the guy he made his money on Doge. He didn't sell, it went down. He held on, it went back up. So if that guy's still holding, shout out to him. He's killing it.
I
Oh, we
think
have a
he is.
similar
He
story.
tweeted the other day that his bag's now like 2 million or something. He said he's back into being a multi-millionaire. So
Well, we all
over
know
the
you
moon.
gotta spend some of it sometimes. Cut off that 5-10% there and buy yourself something nice. So it's never
Got
too late.
himself a bag of doggy
Hodl,
treats.
hodl plus profits. But you know who doesn't hodl? You know who doesn't profit? The magic 8 ball, the seer of truth, completely predicted the rally. Flawless performance as per usual. I think it said that it wouldn't respond last week, which is the same as being right. If you don't respond, it's the same as picking it perfectly. Everyone knows that. Dan, you're competing against the magic 8 ball, the source of all truth in this universe, maybe even soon to be an extension on LN bits and all of
Well,
those
I think
monsters.
it's going to be soon, definitely 100K by by the next show. It's got to be up, going up.
Let us know in the chat, type higher or lower. There's a couple of people in the chat right now. It's pretty quiet in there. But if you guys let us know higher or lower, we'll count them later. Let us know what the chat thinks. Here we go. We're shaking the ball, which they say could cause bubbles. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? And it is very hard to see an upside down. Ask again later. Ask
Yeah.
again later. That's why it's a good bit. Doesn't always deliver. Moving on to issue 3. U.S. hacker sentenced over Bitcoin heist worth billions. A hacker has been sentenced for 5 years to U.S. prison for laundering the proceeds of one of the largest ever cryptocurrency thefts. Illa Lichtenstein, the hacker with Razzlecon, What was his code name? Doesn't say. But I forget now. He's pleaded guilty for the Bitfinex currency hack in 2016 and the theft of 120,000 Bitcoin. At the time, it was worth around $70 million. The value rose to 4.5 billion by the time they were arrested. At today's prices, it would be double that. Dan, Eve, what do you think? They've sentenced Rasul Khan's husband, Ilya, to jail for 5 years for laundering the Bitfinex heist.
I think that's probably quite a light sentence, right? Considering he didn't just launder it, he hacked it, he stole it and laundered it. So that's
That's
quite
what's
a light
interesting about
sentence.
this is that I'm not sure if they convicted him for the stealing it.
Yeah, but they
Seems
but
like,
in
I
this
mean, I have to read
article,
more into it, but yeah,
yeah, but in the article it says that he used, sophisticated techniques to intercept, like, and to actually hack the exchange. But he hasn't gone down for the crime of hacking the exchange or doing the theft itself. So I'm wondering whether, yeah, how much information they had on that. And we haven't had Rasul Khan's trial yet, so maybe Rasul Khan was actually more of the brains behind it. Maybe she was the one that was actually the hacker, and she's going to go down for the theft. Because I don't understand how two people can go down for money laundering, but no one goes down for the theft of it. But
they
yeah,
they
the
push
idea is
the
quite
they
a light
push the
sentence,
enter
though.
key
It's gotta be fun.
together. They push the key at the same time. It
Yeah,
was so romantic. Let's steal the money at the same. Doo, doo,
it
doo,
was a
and put it
multi-sig
together.
steal.
But it is interesting, and there's that Amazon movie I think coming out about Rasul Khan and Ilya, about their incredible robbery. I also want to contest with the article. The article says that Heather Morgan, who used the alias Rasul Khan to promote her hip hop music, she was Rasul Khan. Rasul Khan was who she was. It was not a promotion. Like that's such callous and coldness by the BBC to say that she is not Rasul Khan, that she was just using the alias to promote her music. No, no, no. Rasul Khan was her
He was the
identity,
real Russell,
her
not Russell Khan.
personality. Yeah. As we're going to see in this movie. In the movie, watch Ilya, who may or may not have done the hack. We don't know at this point, allegedly. Like Dan says, maybe the wife is the hacker, maybe someone else is. Mr. Darkness is the hacker, and these idiots end up with the money. Remember, these were the people that were caught allegedly because they were purchasing PlayStation 5s at Walmart. And they had taken this billions or millions of dollars, now billions, they could have just sat on it, millions of dollars in cryptocurrency, and their idea to launder it was through Walmart gift certificates by the hundreds. So millions of dollars, hundreds of dollars, actual money that you get, not very much. So it's very strange that they hacked Bitfinex for this, or that they had the ability to hack Bitfinex. Maybe Bitfinex sucked. I don't know, allegedly. But there it is. He is sentenced. Rasul Khan still to come. What do you think, Dan? More on that issue?
Well, yeah, we'll see what comes out of the second trial, right? If there's anyone else involved. But I'm sure if there was someone else involved, we'd know by now. But I'd like to see whether she goes down for more than just the laundry.
Maybe she had a, Tyler Durden type night character, a second personality, or a, one-armed man. Maybe one of them had two or three or more personalities, and those personalities were performing the hacks, stealing the money.
Maybe. But with the FTX case, is it not by is that a precedence that the kingpin goes down first? Because with Sam Bankman-Fried, right, he was the first to be tried, and then it's all the kind of smaller people. So maybe Mr. Liechtenstein is essentially the main guy, but just they couldn't put the charges for theft on him.
On FTX and most of the other cases, you have kind of a whole office full of people. So Sam was being ratted out by not only his girlfriend, but also his childhood friend and some other guy and a bunch of other people. And all of those people's stories made it easier to convict Sam. In this one, it's really only the couple. So if the couple's not talking, if they're not ratting out, I think it's hard to say that one or the other is the kingpin. I
Yeah.
think in a romantic way, we have to say maybe it was, allegedly, we don't know anything about these cases from the inside, but allegedly that the romantic union was the committer of the crime, and it was the joint couple, like they clicked the mouse together. It was beautiful. Like
How
no one's
romantic.
gonna remember it in this chat, but there was this old Saturday Night Live commercial where they had a toilet for two, and they flushed it together. It's great. But let's keep moving. Check out worldcryptonetwork.com. We've got 4,060 videos that we've been making for over a decade on World Crypto Network, as well as hello to the fans of Mad Bitcoins who are tuning in because last week we pushed the wrong button on Restream, and this week we pushed the wrong button again. Check out worldcryptonetwork.com and madbitcoins.com. I'll fix the certificate soon. I understand that the website is broken. This is my fault. Moving on to issue 3, Bitcoin ETFs witnessed third highest outflow since launch. The other 2 times foreshadowed price bottoms. Bitcoin price is now corrected approximately 6% since the all-time break on November 13. Is this the bottom of Bitcoin? Thomas Hunt. No, I don't think this is the bottom. I'm always bullish about Bitcoin. That's why it's so hard for me to sell. And when I do, it's usually at the worst times. I think this would be one of the worst times to sell, but an easy time to sell if you're an institution. If you've just picked up Bitcoin in the last year, you're up 50, 60%. You're saying, this is the greatest thing we've ever bought. Let's take some profits. Perfectly natural. But there's that other part of it where if Bitcoin is the greatest thing you've ever bought, why not sell your losers? Why not keep your winners? Why not keep your Bitcoin? I think there might be another leg up, more leg ups, and all those things, but there's also going to be downs and there's going to be corrections. And that's how you do a prediction. You say both sides of it, and now no one can pin you down. Dan, Eve, what do you think? Is this the end, or is there perhaps another leg up? Dan's muted, which builds the suspense.
Yeah, no, we've definitely got another leg up. The institutions are going nuts, right? The ETFs have got record inflows, they have record trading volumes. We're not even close to the spike on Google Trends of people searching for Bitcoin yet. The taxi drivers aren't really talking about it. People aren't phoning you up saying, hey, are you still doing Bitcoin, or how do I get this Bitcoin thing at the 100K? Because those calls will start coming. But that 100K resistance line is going to be, we're either going to teeter around it for ages, and it will just be one of those nail biting events where it kind of goes to 99 and pulls back and then comes up and pulls back, or we'll just completely smash through. And the resistance from 100 to 200K is going to be nothing like the resistance from 0 to 100.
There is something magical about that 100K number. As you'll tell from one of our later stories, a lot of OG Bitcoiners are pulled out of their haze and they say to themselves, $100,000 a Bitcoin, and they want to get some of that sell action, as well as a lot of the Wall Street people are used to these round numbers, and they're like, a round number is coming up, let's sell, let's make the profits. And of course, if you take it 98 or you take it 95 or 93, in the end, you might not even care. All the sales in the 90s might be great winners. But if we really look at this long term, you might be saying to yourself, I could have sold in the 490s. I could have sold in the 890s. I'm so dumb. And generally, that's been the truth about Bitcoin. Going back to, if you want, like inside of what it feels like to be a person that's been in Bitcoin since it was like $100 or $1,000. It's like, yeah, every time it seems like it's going down, it's the end of the world. And every time it goes up higher after that. So you're like, yeah, it'll never be worth 1,000 again. It'll never be worth 20,000 again. Those were the good sells. I'm dumb. And then now 50,000 looks like a good buy. 60, 70, 80, 90. It's crazy.
Yeah, it always makes you cry before it makes you cry with sadness before it makes you cry with happiness. Right.
And it does specifically respond to you. If you meant to sell and it goes down, it's taking you down specifically. If it goes up and you don't have any because it's the wrong time of the month or whatever, it's taking it out on you specifically. The market is personalized for and against you. So keep an eye on that. Mr. E says in the chat it's going higher. Mr. Sheffield says higher as well. The entire chat is bullish. It's a bullish chat. Let's move on to issue 4. Gary Gensler claims SEC helped crypto, takes credit for Bitcoin ETFs, dismisses altcoins, and hints at resignation. Gary Gensler is like a dead man walking, saying that the Trump administration will likely be relieving him of his position soon, which would be one of his promises to the crypto people fulfilled, bringing on the other idea of if he does actually appoint someone that is pro crypto, that would be potentially two promises fulfilled. Gary Gensler said that Ethereum and stablecoins are not they are compliant. They're different from other digital assets, which he deems non-compliant. He says that he and the SEC have always held Bitcoin as different than the others, which he's like reading from my own book there. He's speaking my language. So what do I think about Gary Gensler? Well, I do think that it is pretty likely that Trump's going to let him go, and Gensler is speaking as if he were one getting ready to be let go. He's probably packed up his office by this point. And I do disagree that he's been helpful for crypto. He did allow the Bitcoin ETF, but at the last minute. We've been talking about Bitcoin ETFs for maybe 7-8 years now on this channel. You can go back to when it was only the Winklevi planning an ETF, and we, as gullible suckers, thought that it would be easy. We thought, oh, we'll have this ETF done in 6 months. The price is going to go up. That's back when we were using Mt. Gox. We were looking at ETFs then. So yes, Gensler slowed the ETF. He slowed the cause of Bitcoin. He did react as he had to react after the success of the Bitcoin ETF and allow the Ethereum ETF short after. So in that way, he did help Ethereum, but we all predicted that Bitcoin would do the work and Ethereum. And then the real question becomes other ETFs, like Dan was saying, Dogecoin, Solana, Litecoin, who knows, ETFs coming next. And that's all for the new SEC chair. So it really does matter not just getting rid of Gensler, but who comes in next. I disagree with him that he's done such great things for Bitcoin, but when something is as successful as Bitcoin is right now in the market, everyone is going to come around and pretend that they were a part of it. What is it? Success has many fathers, failure is an orphan, something like that. So everyone's coming, Dan, and it seems the SEC director is here as well. Dan, what do you think about the SEC director? Suddenly our friend, it's almost like that scene in the great Howard Stern movie Private Parts where the NBC guy comes around, he's like, Howard, I want you to know that I'm going to be your partner now, and I'm going to help you go far, and you just won the ratings, and I'm with you. And Howard's like, no, just F you, get out of here. I don't want to hear it. And the same thing for Bitcoin. We don't need these people, but they can come along and say that they were our success this whole time. What do you think, Dan?
Well, I think he's just trying to claim credit here, right? He's trying to create a legacy before he goes out the door. He's very clearly going to be gone. Whether he's going to be, I think they said that he can't be fired, but he can be superseded by a new chief. So either way, he's going to be managed out. And to say that to take credit, right? He rejected many ETFs and really only said yes when BlackRock, who were the biggest asset manager, started knocking on his door. And whether that was tactical because BlackRock wanted to wait before they wanted to get their ETF ready. And so he was aware of that and wanted them to be able to start buying their cash before the inevitable flood once the first ETF's been approved. And don't we have there's many now. There's many ETFs. So fair enough, he did approve them, but it took a long time and a lot of rejection. And plus, there's a lot of messing other companies around. In the last few years, we've obviously had FTX that have gone down, and the bad exchanges. We've had issues with currencies like Luna that have completely crashed to zero, and the stable coins depegged. But then we've also had Gensler and the SEC knocking on the door of Coinbase and Bittrex and other exchanges that are genuinely trying to actually get along and to actually work with the regulators and make a good start at their business and be solid in their plans with regulation, and they've still been sued. So I think he's just clutching at straws really to try and withhold his legacy.
I think you're right, Dan. It does make a big deal that BlackRock got the ETF, not the Winklevi, not Coinbase, not any of the other crypto players who probably all wanted the ETF first. Even some of them like Bitwise and others kind of had to be followers to BlackRock. But that does mean what it is when you have billions of dollars of assets under management, right? BlackRock is a gigantic investment company. When they come in, like you say, Gensler had to go with them. He had to go once the Bitcoin ETFs were a huge success. He had to go for the Ethereum ETFs as well. And I think it's important, like you said, Dan, to keep him responsible for what was on his watch. On the watch of Gary Gensler was the FTX exchange, something that was regulatable, something that applied for regulation, something was in Fortune magazine. It wasn't a surprise when Super Nintendo Losky went to the Japanese and he said, I've heard about the Mount Gox disaster and I'm here to help. And the Japanese said, what is Mount Gox? We knew what FTX was. It was on the cover of Fortune magazine. It was everywhere in San Francisco. This kid with the curly hair was interviewed about his Honda and how great he was. He was sponsoring an arena. He had Tom Brady doing his advertising. He hired Larry David. And it was all just not just a fraud, but it was a poorly run disaster. It was this childhood house, and people always worry about startups. And they're like, startups are a bunch of kids in their basement, and they're going to keep crappy accounting and all that. They go to this startup and it's keeping billions of dollars of assets on QuickBooks. It's giving this money to this Alameda Research to do God knows what with the money. And the money turns out that it's from your savings. It's from your Bitcoin. It's from your assets you're supposed to be holding, allegedly, and so forth. I haven't looked at the books, but from what we've read from articles, this is where the funds were being held. And that these kids were at the top taking a bunch of smart drugs and trading and having a polycule and so forth. Like, this is a disaster of due diligence that could have been done under Gary Gensler, by his friends in the investment industry who could have checked out this guy before they just said, hey, he's from Stanford. It's all good. It's all cool. Or he's from MIT, wherever he's from. His parents were from Stanford. So yes, it's a mixed bag for Gary Gensler. And even I, who I'm not joining into this whole let's burn down the state, deep state thing, but I do think Gary Gensler had a questionable term as SEC chair, and he is kind of trying to join the winners here with Bitcoin and just say, yeah, I was your friend all along. Dan, more on this?
No, I agree. I think he's just trying to go out with a bang and pretend that he's done a bunch of good stuff, whereas very realistically, as we've covered a lot, he's been very restrictive to the crypto market.
But he was our friend all along. You'll remember. Let's move on to issue 5, our last story, and my favorite story this week. This OG Bitcoin investor just turned $120 into $178 million. The user held Bitcoin from when it was worth 6 cents all the way up to $90,000 a coin. The whale allegedly had 2,000 Bitcoin and moved them to Coinbase, where they were likely sold for millions and millions of dollars. What an amazing hodl by this user who had been holding since 2010. And in a way, I think we all wish we could have done this. It would have been so much easier just to buy 2,000 Bitcoin back in the day and not do any work, not do any travel, not work for any startups, not have to make any speeches or do anything. You just sit around and don't sell, and you get this incredible windfall. I do think that we have to take into mind how difficult it was for this user not to sell, how many times the price had went up before, and they said, well, $300, that's not for me. $1,000, $10,000, $50,000. They got up to around $90,000 to $100,000, and this user said, okay, 178 million is okay. And it's always funny, people say that the old Bitcoiners will never sell and that there'll never be an amount that's worth it where they'll sell. But it seems to me there's always this number. I guess it's $178 million minus fees and what have you. So a little less. And then, of course, taxes and so forth, depending on where they are. I have obviously no information on this user. This is a Bitcoin account. Could have just been somebody else or something else. But $90,000 a coin. All they had to do was hodl. Dan, Eve, what do you think of this incredible accomplishment by this unknown Bitcoin user?
Well, it's easier said than done, right? Like to just buy and hold. I think some of these are going to be people that just forgot about it and they've or had issues and they finally got into that old laptop because to hold $120 to 178 million is it takes it takes a lot of decision making process continuously saying, should I sell, should I sell? But if you think about it, $178 million, like if someone was to give that to me right now, I wouldn't know what to do with it. It would take an eternity to spend. So they must have reached a point where they're like, this is just silly. I don't care if Bitcoin goes to 1 million, because I'll just have more problems, right? There's that the famous saying, right? The more money you have, the more problems you have. And I'd be worried about having $178 million windfall. Like, I get scared. I used to get scared when I had a work bonus. I'd be like, what do I do with this money? I've got to, just pay off debt. But I'm sure they
Now,
haven't.
what do you think of the idea? I know the lottery in the United States, they pay you over like 25 years. So if you win the lottery, you get like 100 grand a year. And in a way, I think this is supposed to obviously defend the lottery company from having to pay it all out at once because they don't have it, but
Yeah,
also in a way to kind of defend these people from losing all their money. There's this classic statistic where if someone wins $5 million dollars in the lottery, they'll lose it within 5 years, right?
yeah,
They'll piss it away. Now, this user, now we don't know, they could have many other wallets that they've been tasting throughout the years that we don't know about, but this one chunk of 2,000 Bitcoin was held since the beginning, and then they sold it all at once. What would you rather have, Dan? This kind of maybe a 20 mil reward at the end, and you get 100,000 a year every once in a while, or this 175 all at once, but you kind of have to be poor for like 20 or 30 years before you get this giant payout.
oh, I think the steady income sounds kind of good, but no one's going to spawn at 178 million.
You have to imagine that they're panhandling. They have dirty clothes and a dirty apartment, and they sleep on a pile of rags, and
Just
they
give me a
save
second.
all this Bitcoin, and they're just like they're probably waiting for 200 million. Really, if you look at this, 178 to them is probably some kind of capitulation where they're like, ah, forget it. What's 200 million? What's 178? What's 150 million? What's the 20? What's the difference, right? They cash it out. Or like you say, Dan, we have no idea. It could have been they found the old laptop, they found the old coins. Maybe somebody passed away, they found their coins in the will, and
Yeah,
the granddaughter's like, "Eff it, I'm spending them all. Like I'm banking this," and more power to them. But again, I think that the Bitcoin, the old Bitcoin, will be sold. The giant companies, MicroStrategy, maybe the US government, all these other things, they will buy it up. And in the end, there won't be these giant Bitcoin holders, but there'll still be great stories like this every once in a while about
yeah.
a guy who was an OG Bitcoin investor, turned $120 into
Well done.
178. If you're in the chat, investor, remember you could always invest in the World Crypto Network. Send us some of that fund. Give us a chat out there. I remember the Pineapple Fund. For a while, there was an early investor who made a lot of money, who was dropping millions on organizations he liked, things like the Internet Archive and maybe BitGive and some other cool things. So if there's a Pineapple investor out there who just made 178 mil, always drop some millions here on the World Crypto Network. We're going to head towards the end of the show. Dan, Eve, do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
No, no, no. I think that we're gonna see 100K Bitcoin very, very soon. We did a 9K Bitcoin jump in one day, which is the biggest ever. So I think we've got something huge coming. There's gonna be like a 10K jump.
I did check the World Crypto Network Trezor account from a long time ago, and there was some funds in there, but it was not worth $1 million yet. So I put it back in the
Definitely
box.
not 178 million.
Hey, we'll have to wait. Well, maybe that one would be good. 178 seems like a lot,
That'd
but
be
I think
fine.
one would be good. One would be fun. But no, I don't have much of a story for this week. I'm glad that Dan joined me. It's good to talk about these issues and keep talking about what's going on. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the Trump administration, allegedly a pro-Bitcoin administration. So we'll see if that's good or bad. There was an article this week we couldn't cover because they wouldn't show it to us in the Wall Street Journal, questioning whether this would all be good for Bitcoin, if regulation would be good for it. As we've seen in a lot of other cases, there's a case going on right now with this electronic vehicle credit where it seems like in the early cases it helped Tesla, so they want it. Now it's helping Rivian and other Tesla competitors, so Tesla no longer wants it, so they might eliminate it. In the same way, crypto regulation might lead to a situation where Coinbase or Kraken become institutionalized, become the all-powerful banks, and an up-and-comer like FTX or something else could never make a splash, could never get into the industry because of the regulation, because it's so onerous. You have to file and do all these things. Or there's a possibility that they streamline the regulation, make it easy. I know Kraken, for example, had to apply in all 50 states to be an exchange, an incredibly onerous task. You can just tell by looking at least 50 jurisdictions, 50 different rules, 50 different lawyers, so on and so forth, teams of lawyers, no doubt. They could make that easier, or they could make it harder, or more likely, they could do nothing. I still predict nothing. I predict gridlock, I predict infighting, and I predict a failure to deliver on promises. So I don't think it's easy to deliver on promises. I think if you really want to do it, you have to deliver. And to me, that means freeing Ross in the first 100 days.
Yes.
Maybe a lot of other people go to jail and it's awful and it's effed up, but maybe Ross goes free. So we'll be keeping an eye on that here on the show, just casually. Obviously, nothing we can do. Ross is in jail and so forth, but we can count the days and be curious. So
Let me count the days.
that's right.
Like
It'll be easy. We'll carve them on the wall. Like they said, the clock had just struck 15 or whatever it was. So, but thanks to everybody for joining us. Be sure to give us a thumbs up down below. Press subscribe. Hello to the 2 or 3 people in the chat. It's been quiet in there. Been keeping an eye on it. But until next time, bye bye.